person does not die, but becomes light continuing to exist. These words belong to the greatest scientist and inventor of all time, Nikola Tesla. But what did he mean by that? The society began to learn about many mysterious facts of his life after his departure to another world. Some researchers believe that Tesla managed to solve the mystery of death. Information was found in his diaries that can change the idea of what a person, soul, and God are like. Tesla was able to outrun time by creating incredible inventions that humanity still uses. But few people know that Nikola Tesla became famous not only as a brilliant engineer, but also as a mysterious and thoughtful philosopher. And despite his genius, he remained a man who was close to ordinary experiences. He often reflected on deep things, the soul, immortality, God, and technologies that could transform humanity. Today is my 80th birthday, and I suddenly had a question about what would be left after me. Some of my works, inventions, and even more tall tales that are being made up about me during my lifetime? When I leave, they will try to blacken my name, and I will no longer be able to fight back. So, while I'm still here, I need to tell you about myself, so that people living after me will know the real Nikola Tesla, the famous physicist wrote in his diary on his birthday. It was then that Tesla decided to make notes in which he would tell his descendants about his life, character, and beliefs. In this personal diary, the scientist also talked about how he believed in the existence of God and shared his thoughts on what happens to a person after the end of his earthly life. The Tesla family lived in the Serbian village of Smiljan, near the town of Gospica. His father, Milutin Tesla, served in the Orthodox Church. His mother, Georgina Mandic, was the daughter of a priest. On July 10, 1856, the family had a fourth child, a son, Nikola. According to one of the legends that surrounded Tesla's life, a terrible thunderstorm happened at the time of Nikola's birth. The midwife who took the baby was very worried and insisted that the newborn would be a child of darkness, since thunder had long been considered a bad sign in Serbia. But Tesla's mother replied, "No, he will be a child of light." Georgina turned out to be right. Thunder predicted that Nikola would be a scientist and would bring light to people. Tesla was fluent in 8 languages: Serbian, German, English, Hungarian, Italian, Czech, and even Latin. He had a phenomenal memory and spatial thinking. Nikola easily learned the wisdom of learning, first in elementary school and then in the gymnasium of the neighboring town of Karlovac. The boy was well versed in mathematics and mechanics. In July 1873, Nikola received his matriculation certificate and was about to return home. But a cholera epidemic broke out in Gospic. Milutin categorically forbade his son to come, but a strict letter could not keep Nikola away from her family. He returned to his family and immediately fell ill. The disease was in its most severe form. That's what Tesla himself said about it. "Since childhood, I have been destined for the path of a priest. This prospect hung over me like a black cloud. After receiving my matriculation certificate, I found myself at a crossroads. Should I disobey my father, ignore my mother's loving wishes, or submit to fate? This thought depressed me, and I looked to the future with fear. I deeply respected my parents, so I was inclined to pursue spiritual studies. It was then that a terrible cholera epidemic broke out, which wiped out 1/10 of the population. Despite my father's orders, which did not allow objections, I rushed home and the disease took me down. Later, cholera led to dropsy, lung problems, and other related illnesses. 9 months in bed, almost without movement, exhausted all my vitality, and the doctors abandoned me. It was a painful experience, not so much because of the physical suffering, but because of my great desire to live. During one of the attacks, when everyone thought I was dying, my father rushed into the room to support me with these words, "You'll be fine." I can still see his deathly pale face when he tried to cheer me up. "Maybe," I replied. "I'll be able to get better if you let me study engineering." "You will go to the best educational institution in Europe," he replied solemnly, and I realized that he was giving me a blessing. A heavy weight was lifted from my soul. But the consolation might have come too late if I hadn't been miraculously cured by an old woman with a decoction. There was no suggestion or mysterious influence in this. The remedy for the disease was curative in every sense, and it helped. In the same year, Nikola entered the higher technical school in Graz. where he began to study electrical engineering. Thus began the career of the great inventor. In total, Tesla has more than 700 inventions and patents, some of which are the most important historical milestones of modern electricity. I have an explanation for a lot of things. However, even now I don't have an explanation for how my brain works. During the scientific search, I start thinking first, and only after that I experiment. When I think, some ideas come to me instantly. They appear in my head in the form of a ready-made drawing, says Tesla on the first pages of his diary. The scientist recalls that for the first time, such an epiphany happened to him at the age of 26 during a walk. Walking through the park, he clearly saw an image of an AC motor in his mind's eye. Tesla immediately decided to make a drawing of this device. This had to be done on the sand of the park path with a stick, since Nikola was not in the habit of carrying a book with him at that time. According to the scientist, from that day began a series of insights that visited him for the rest of his life. In his notes, Tesla claimed that with the help of this ability, he learned how to penetrate into the future. It was there that he found the answers to his questions. An excerpt from an interview Tesla gave to New York newspaper reporter Alex Smith in 1899. Do you know how I discovered the two inventions that made me famous at the age of 26? One summer evening in Budapest, I watched the sunset. Thousands of lights shimmered and shone in hundreds of shades. Suddenly, as if in a fog, I saw a rotating magnetic field and an asynchronous motor. I saw them in the sun, and I just transferred what I saw to paper and then turned it into reality. I don't need models, drawings, experiments. When I have ideas, I start building a device in my imagination, change the design, improve it, and turn it on. And I don't care at all if the device is being tested in my mind or in the workshop. The results will be the same. I haven't had a single exception in 20 years. I can mentally look through time and see something that doesn't exist yet. Of course, the nature of these insights couldn't help but interest me. I tried to figure this out on my own, but I failed every time. Hoping to get an answer about the nature of these visions, the scientist turned to Professor Hall. Grenville Stanley Hall was a recognized psychologist in the Americas and a pioneer in the field of religious psychology. As a child, he was introduced to Christianity by his devout mother. Already in college, Grenville studied the Bible on his own. He said that the highest choice of free will is self-sacrifice for the sake of serving God, and also that love is contained in the Supreme Being, God. Hall promoted religion as restoring the individual to his true place in the world, returning to health and integrity. The professor has been researching Tesla's abilities for a year, but has been unable to explain from the point of view of scientific psychology how and where sudden insights come from. Hall preferred to keep his own assumptions to himself. Nikola's interest did not fade. He searched again and again for an explanation of the mysterious phenomenon. Finally, the scientist came to the conclusion that some kind of extraterrestrial civilization was putting ideas into his brain. One day, the appearance of another new idea in Tesla's head coincided with the appearance of the red planet in the sky. At that time, it was assumed in scientific circles that an intelligent civilization could exist on Mars. As a thank you to the Martians, the scientist even wrote several articles. However, the physicist later abandoned the idea of Martian aid. Tesla's psychic energy was terrifying. She was just ringing with tension. He has the eyes of a seer and a clairvoyant, they said of Tesla. For several years, Tesla accurately predicted that the First World War would last 4 years and end in December 1918. He was only 5 to 6 days wrong. He also predicted that the period of peace after the First World War would last 20 years. Then the Second World War may begin. But the main thing that shocked his contemporaries was the enormous number of original ideas that Tesla generated with inexplicable ease. And finally, the shocking confession of the scientist, which sounded like this: I am not the author of these ideas. The correct answer to how the mechanism of my insights works came to me many years later. One day I woke up thinking that all the ideas were sent to me by God. Until that moment, I didn't believe in his existence, even though I grew up in a priest's family, Nikola Tesla said. Tesla's father wanted his son to follow in his footsteps. In his diary, The scientist describes the day when he first told his father that he did not believe in God. Tesla believed that this confession would ruin his relationship with his father. But that didn't happen. At that moment, his father was looking at him like a doctor looking at a seriously ill patient. The father explained that the path to faith for every person lies through doubt. According to Tesla, he has been following this path for over 40 years. On the day when the scientist came up with the idea of the existence of God, he was in a hotel. Tesla dropped everything he was doing, ran outside and asked the taxi driver to take him to the nearest Orthodox church. He did not become a priest of the Serbian Orthodox Church, although his father sincerely prayed for this, but he became a priest of the Temple of the Science of Light and Energy, which brought good fruits to all mankind. Nikola Tesla's diary entries are published in the book, I Can Explain a Lot. Later, I told Hall that I understood everything. It was my duty as a scientist to explain to him how the problem was solved. Who better to know how painful an unresolved problem can be for a researcher? She's like a splinter stuck in my brain, haunting me. You're thinking about something else entirely, but your thoughts are constantly going astray. Hall smiled and said that he had come to this conclusion while working with me, but did not share his thoughts, because I had repeatedly told him that I did not believe in God. Hall has a wise rule of not telling people things they can't believe. If the professor had told me then that my insights were the work of God, I would not have believed him. You could have called him a charlatan. In moments of anger, I become intemperate with my tongue, and I don't choose my words. In his diary, Nikola Tesla also left his explanation of why God chose an unbeliever scientist as a receiver of new ideas. Tesla said that science does not serve patent holders or individual countries, but the common good. Even before he came to the faith, the scientist believed that his life was about serving people. Having no faith in his soul, he was heading in the right direction. And all this time, God patiently sent the scientist proof of his existence. Everything I don't do for myself. I am convinced that thanks to my inventions, people's lives will become easier, more prosperous, and more moral, the scientist hoped. Nikola Tesla also talked about how he imagines God. In his understanding, God is energy. It is eternal, primordial, and omnipresent. In Tesla's mind, this energy is light. In the beginning there was light. Its real face is darkness, invisible to us. The light illuminated the entire universe, and from it arose celestial bodies, man, and everything that exists in the universe. Thus, the energy of light is much older than matter, which is only an expression of countless forms of light. And saying the opposite is like saying that your father gave birth to you. Nikola Tesla noted, if everything is born from light, then after the completion of its physical existence, everything turns into light. Therefore, Nikola Tesla argued that man does not die, but becomes light, continuing his existence in its original form. Everyone who existed before us did not die. They turned into an immortal light. This is not a resurrection, but a return to the primary energy from which the soul was born. The particles of light restore their original state. By becoming light, we set out to wander through the vast expanses of the universe. In a sense, this is immortality. At the end of his diary, Nikola Tesla admits that he often heard words about the infidelity of many of his ideas. The phrase, "Tesla is wrong," has become fashionable. In fact, many people just don't have enough knowledge and imagination to understand my ideas. How many people have called me a visionary, and how our misguided, short-sighted world has mocked my ideas. Time will judge us. Imagination is more real than life itself. I have been nourished by my teaching, and I have learned to control emotions, dreams, and visions. I've always thrived on my enthusiasm, and I've spent my whole long life in ecstasy. This is the source of my happiness. His imagination was his source. All these years, it has helped to cope with a job that would be enough for 5 lifetimes. I want to believe that the next generations will understand me. This will happen when my earthly life is over. I hope that there is no end after all. I'll have a chance to see for myself soon. I leave this world with the feeling that I was able to leave something behind for people, which means that my whole life was not in vain. Tesla's creative method makes us believe that there is a kind of global data bank, which is now called the energy information field of the universe. And Tesla was able to tap into this source, drawing from it the necessary information. He wanted everyone to have access to it. A lot has been written about Nikola Tesla. Still, Tesla remains a mystery, an unsolved mystery, a misunderstood genius. Although he expressed his worldview quite frankly and clearly, this is always the case. A large-scale personality cannot be solved in principle. Genius is a level of consciousness of higher complexity, of an inaccessible complexity. We cannot understand God. We will also never understand geniuses. This must be accepted without resentment and selfish jealousy. Do you think there is life after death? Write your opinion in the comments. If you want to learn more about life after death and the afterlife, then I recommend watching my other videos. Please don't forget to like this video if you liked it. See you soon and have a nice day.